Our next storyteller is Ashley Brothers.
I grew up in a home with a severely mentally ill and abusive mother, a father who was often gone on business trips, and an angry, dysfunctional sister. Everything had to be perfect. I was not allowed to get dirt on my clothes, a scratch on my shoes, or a fingerprint on a glass. Any of those resulted in abuse. Mom told me that I was a fat, ugly, worthless piece of shit and wished I was dead. She would wrap her hands around my throat and squeeze, push my head under the water in the bathtub, and dig her nails into my arms until they bled. I learned to be a ghost in my own home. When Mom couldn't find me, she went after my boisterous sister, and I could hear her screams in the basement or clear outside where I huddled next to the house. In her resentment, my sister often punched me and called me names. I was put on Slim Fast in 4th grade and forced to jog and do sit-ups until I threw up. By the time I reached high school, I was a whopping 85 pounds. But my mother said I was still fat, so I gave up. I was bullied in school because I had a poor stress tolerance and I cried all the time. The night I woke up to my sister's piercing scream as mother beat her into a corner behind the toilet for getting makeup on a washcloth was the night the lion in me broke its chain. Determined to escape hell, I graduated from high school a month after I turned 17 by going to high school during the day and community college at night. On the drive to college, Dad asked me why I was so driven to leave and was utterly devastated when I told him what Mom did to us while he was gone. He divorced her 6 months later, and when she discovered that I was the reason he left, she threatened to kill us both. I sat in my dorm room that day and I made a vow that I would never forget. I swore that my mother's legacy of abuse would die with me, that I never would have love or a family because I never wanted to treat anyone the way that she had treated us, and that my greatest gift to humankind would be to never procreate. Over the next few years, I worked in group homes with severely developmentally disabled adults that were extremely violent. I had been punched, kicked, bitten, my hair pulled out and my clothes torn off. I also had the privilege of being married to a man that abused me every way there is. He referred to me as slut or whore instead of by my name, and I ended up in the ER many times because of the damage he inflicted on me during intercourse. He lost me the day he let his dogs eat my birds and my cat and forced me to stand still while they licked me, still covered in kitten blood, and said, "These are your babies." But I left him at 3 a.m., December 17th, 1999, in the middle of a snowstorm. A week later, Mom died in her sleep, and my sister and I inherited our childhood house of horrors. I was 250 pounds, and I spent the next 2.5 years sleeping, eating, smoking, and drinking my life away in the very same bed Mom died in, praying the angel of death would come again and end my suffering. I hid in the back of a closet, rocking back and forth, punching my legs, biting my wrists, and smashing my head into a wall. I was unable to tolerate the sound of a human voice or the touch of a human hand. It was getting into a car accident that inspired me to ask my doctor to refer me to a psychiatrist. I was first diagnosed and treated for depression. But the drugs they gave me made me so manic, they said, "Oh, she must be bipolar." When I admitted to hearing voices and seeing ghosts all my life, many of which had saved the lives of many of my family members, they gave me a side diagnosis of PTSD and schizophrenia. I was put on so many drugs that I was a numb, drooling mess that was barely able to work or drive. But my entire world changed for the better. The day I went for a tarot card reading, and the woman asked me if I knew I could speak to the dead. Hello. She gave me the card of the woman who would eventually be my first shamanic healer and teacher. Within several months of my first healing, I was able to get off all medication, drop 100 pounds, start massage school, public speaking, and the shamanic training that would come to save my life when modern medicine left me to die. In November 2005, I had 2 cysts removed from my right ovary. The recovery was slow, and I found a large lump in my left pelvis. My spirit guides told me that my life was in danger, so I refused to leave the doctor's office without an ultrasound, even though they tried to brush me off. In June 2006, they removed my left ovary, 2 grapefruit-sized masses containing a forgotten sponge. And they surgically separated the rest of my organs that had fused together because of nearly 8 months of an infection. I was put on high levels of hormones to prevent cysts from forming, but I experienced such severe mood swings I had to quit my job. I was forced to undergo a psychiatric evaluation to determine if I was of sound mind to make my own decisions. And I passed. 8 months later, I lost my entire reproductive system, and my other organs were surgically separated again. As if that wasn't enough, 8 months after that, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath. I had a rare form of vasculitis, but I was refused care by over 40 doctors because I was in the midst of a medical lawsuit. They tried to convince me that my test results were normal and that my symptoms were entirely psychological. I was pissed when I ordered my records and found that I actually had 4 hernias, a collapsing intestine, a twisted bowel, ulcers, gastritis, adhesions, nerve damage, and a rare autoimmune disease called Takayasu's arteritis that destroys your arteries and your aorta, cutting off the blood flow to anything they're attached to. I ended up with countless seizures and 16 miniature strokes. I was refused care in 3 states, so I turned to my shamanic training. It was my spirit guides that taught me how to turn off a terminal disease by changing to a grain-free, sugar-free vegan diet, which incidentally improved my mental and emotional symptoms significantly. Those same spirits taught me how to cut off the strokes by packing my left side in ice and eating 4 chewable aspirin when an attack started. They taught me how to turn off my seizures by eating a high-fat, high-magnesium diet. Unfortunately, I still had to write my will and prepay for my own cremation because by that time I had lost most of the blood supply to my limbs. My urn and thank you cards for attending my funeral came 2 weeks before my spirit guides led me to the doctor in Minnesota that was willing to save my life. You wouldn't know by looking at me that the blood supply to both of my legs, my left arm, and my brain flow through synthetic tubes made of Gore-Tex and Decron. I relearned how to read and do math, to use the left side of my body again, and to eat solid food after drinking it for 3 years because of gastroparesis. You wouldn't know I had no recognition of my friends, coworkers, and clients, my belongings, or my own reflection for 2 years, until one of my shamanic teachers did 2 healings on me. So although that vascular surgeon ultimately saved my life, it was the indigenous approach to healing that cured me and taught me how to sense and shift the types of energies that create imbalances that lead to physical and mental illnesses. It empowers me to know that I can adjust and balance my energy through diet, exercise, prayer, and healing techniques. I still get anxiety, but even a bad day is a good day because I am just so grateful to be here. Constant prayer and communication with my spirit guides has kept me alive through decades of hell. So you can call me crazy. You can call me mentally ill. I don't care. Because I call myself a living, breathing prayer. Thank you.